What is it about the Royal Enfield that inspires this kind of devotion? Is it the look of the machine, its inimitable sound, the story how it came to be, how it nearly died, and the way in which it was resurrected? What makes brands successful? What lies at the heart of any product that has survived years of market forces, changing management, good and bad press, and time itself? The people who believe in the brand. Why does Royal Enfield matter? I could give you a host of reasons, but I would rather let the faithful speak. The company might belong to an industrial family, but make no mistake, Royal Enfield has always belonged to its riders. And the story of the brand is the story of these people as well.
Thank you so much for that, Amrit. Hi, all. Welcome you yet again to another episode of the Banyan Tree, a video series where we interview some of the best non-fiction authors. And this time I'm not going to say Indian because there is something in surprise for all of you later. But yes, this is an attempt for us to satisfy our curiosity and our thirst for knowledge every time we read a book and go beyond that monologue to create a dialogue with the authors to know a little bit more about them, about the book, and a little bit more about life in general, I suppose. So, Souradip, over to you to introduce the book and Amrit for today.
Thanks, Sahil. Thanks a lot. The book we have today is called The Indian Icon, very rightly so, because it's on a genuine Indian icon, the Royal Enfield. A little bit about Amrit. Amrit is a graduate from Delhi University, and thereafter he did his post-graduation in mass communication. He's a veteran journalist. He worked with Deccan Chronicle, Live Mint. He was mostly covering the corporate side of it, the automobile industry, the real industry, the real estate industry, and the family businesses, etc. And thereafter, late in 2019, he chose to switch over to corporate world, and right now he's a brand and communication specialist. So, Amrit has the right mix of journalism and that of a marketeer to come up with such a beautiful book. A bit about the book. The cover itself is very beautiful. It's something that's surely to catch your eye at an airport bookstall, maybe, or maybe even at any other bookstall. Gold and black. I really like it. The book has got plethora of praises from who's who of the automobile industry and even beyond automobile industry, like chairman of Maruti Suzuki, editor of Autocar India, former vice chairman Tata Motors. It has got praises even from producers of movies, etc. We'll talk about more about it during the course of the interview. So, Sahil, over to you for the very first question we have for Amrit.
No, but this is not even an interview, by the way, right? This is more of a conversation that I'm very excited to have. Thank you so much, Amrit, for joining us today. Right, really humbled to have you on the conversation today, right here. And but I would just like to start with the cover because right now I'm seeing it and I realize that we didn't sort of factor in in that, right? So Indian Icon soon to be a major web series. What's the story behind that?
So thank you very much for calling me on your show. I'm really, I mean, it feels nice that you guys are doing this kind of a thing. And really, really grateful that you've read it before praising the book. So that's the good part about the web series. It's still in the works. Can't share much details. But the rights are with a Bollywood producer who is putting together a plan and should have been faster, but because of the pandemic and all of that, it's kind of going slow. But hopefully it should come out. I don't know, in the next few months, maybe a couple of years, I guess. It will be based on the book, and yeah, it'll be nice to see what the producer and the director he signs does with the project, because we don't typically have movies coming out of India on such subjects. I mean, I don't expect a Ford versus Ferrari with this, but if we get closer, it'll be fine.
No, true. And so Souradip and I were sitting yesterday and today. We were looking at what is it that we can ask, because every time we read a book, right, and the sort of the part that you read in the beginning, it defined the way I read the book, right? Because that was the answer I was constantly looking for in the entire book that I was reading. Right? What makes Royal Enfield a cult brand? And before that, my my curiosity was also in understanding why pick up Royal Enfield? As you call out in the book, there is Triumph, there is Harley Davidson, and then there are new age players, right? Java and all, who have also taken that status of almost a cult brand, right? So then I read your author's note in which you talk about the process of what made you pick up Royal Enfield, the list of the top 10 consumer brands that have the potential of becoming global, right? So what are those other brands? First, let's get that out of the window. And then, how Royal Enfield? Why Royal Enfield?
See, I mean, it's just a story because when you were writing an author's note, you have to sound very deep and philosophical and all of that. I always wondered that what is going to be my I'll be thanking people, but before that, how am I going to kind of introduce how the book happened, and then I actually started thinking about it, that how it all started. So I used to have, I mean, I worked with one of the finest editors that the modern Indian journalism has seen. His name is Sukumar Ranganathan. He is right now the editor-in-chief of Hindustan Times. So he was editing Mint when I was there, and we often used to have like these long meetings where we would discuss and brainstorm about several companies, and how a company used to do what in the 80s and 90s, and how it has transformed itself, and some companies who had potential and they went down the drain. And frankly, there were I mean, there's a lot of focus on IT companies and hospitality companies from India who could go abroad and do multiple things, but there wasn't any like hardcore consumer company like say a Unilever of UK coming into India and doing the kind of things that it has done, right? So you didn't have that Indian company doing that elsewhere. I mean, Tatas are there; they're successful mostly in the B2B segment or in the hospitality segment, but nothing like true blue consumer company. And then we started kind of going through multiple levels of conversations. Some of the, I mean, I don't exactly frankly remember even the names of all those 10 companies, but some of the companies that we did look at were say Haldirams, which I've mentioned in the book, and it has done. I mean, I'm talking about this conversation that happened 10 years ago. So Haldirams, for that matter, Raymond was a part of that club.
There was Kingfisher Airlines as well in that list.
Then, of course, the two brands, of course, from the same family, Good Earth and Royal Enfield, these two were there. And that was there's something very peculiar about these two brands, very understated, not flashy at all. The core strengths of each of the brands are very, very strong. It was just about widening the canvas and making it accessible to more and more people. So those were the factors which I thought were going to work more in favor of a Royal Enfield than any other consumer brand. And in hindsight, in the last 10 years, I think those were the reasons, which actually made Royal Enfield what it is today, to be honest. If you think Royal Enfield was an idea, it was always an idea. If you go back, purely because of the fact that the kind of stories that it has told over the years, I mean, over 90, 100 years maybe. If you go back and look into the history, which I've talked about in the book as well, that there are early traces of Royal Enfield into India in 1905 and 1907, right? Then you have this, there's a mention of this motorcycle race that happens between Calcutta and Gaya, in which Royal Enfield is a part. Then that letter from the founder's son who's talking about how Royal Enfield will be kind of flying through Kashmir to Kanyakumari. That letter was written in 1932. And then you had the army connection of the 1950s, independent India. So what I'm trying to say is that at every stage, Royal Enfield has been a part of our socio-economic, demeanor. And you have stories, all kinds of stories associated with the brand. So somehow it's been there in your subconscious. Whether you own it, whether you don't own it, or you've just seen it somewhere, the old Royal Enfields and the noise that it made while it ran through, your colony roads, would kind of, make you come out of the house as a kid to see what exactly it is. And then, everybody had their uncles, chachas and mamas and all who, in those days, used to have Enfield or ESDs of the world. And before the RX 100s came up. So I think that is one of the biggest factor that is still working in favor of Royal Enfield. The stories that it has created, and it continues to create those stories. And that is one of the reasons why I've started the book like this, because the brand and the experience that it provides to its users is very different. You won't find, Harley Davidson is known for its rallies, right? And it's the camaraderie that its riders have. I haven't tried that brand and that part of the phenomena, but I don't think the kind of diversity or the kind of variety that a Royal Enfield community brings, any brand community in the world will be able to bring that, because they have multiple stories. I mean, if you just go to any of the congregation that Royal Enfield hosts every year, you'll hear so many stories that you could write another book on it. So I think yeah, I'm sorry, I forgot your question, but I'm saying that has been the single largest factor for me writing the book. You all these things are hearsays and verbal stories. How do you bring all of them together under a book? That was the objective.
That is a strong statement to make when you say that no other brand has been able to come close to Royal Enfield when it comes to creating stories. And you do start with a lot of stories, right? Just wanted to know how. And okay, by the way, you also have this way of writing where you sort of almost use first person perspective when you are quoting people, right? And that sort of makes a person also think that, oh, there is a person who's actually writing it, and it's not passive.
Yeah.
So wanted to know, how was your experience when you were interviewing the people for the stories? And I'm talking about the first 10-15 stories that you talk about of the Royal Enfield users. How was that experience for you?
And while reading the book, actually, Sahil, I was able to visualize it in a very documentary format, if I may say so.
See, the biggest the fear that I had while writing this book is that this brand is loved by so many people, across age group, across population, across geographies, that if you go wrong, or if you miss upon anything, criticism would have been in plenty, so that was kind of playing on my mind right from like day one when I took up this subject, because I didn't want to do a mediocre work with a brand like this, because these kind of brands don't come up every day on a daily basis, and especially not from a country like India. So that was the topmost priority. So it took me like the whole book writing process was good 2 to 3 years. A lot of research, a lot of travel happened. I met several people who I have not included in the book. Several things that are not a part of the book, because there are so many stories. I mean, if I just write about stories, I could write 101 stories of people associated with Royal Enfield. Okay. The beauty of it was that whoever I spoke with, they said it is time that you should put this together in a book. So they've all been very forthcoming, like this guy who mentioned in the book, Paul Smith or Bobby Singh. They are characters. If you'll speak to them, they are characters in themselves. Like, they don't give a damn about whether the company likes them or not, or whether they support them or not. They are the builders of Royal Enfield. They have the sentence where you said, "Make no mistake, Royal Enfield has always belonged to its riders." Uh, if you go back in the history, there was a time when Royal Enfield as a brand was slacking, right? The previous owners were not doing well, and the Lals hadn't come in the picture. So who were the ones who actually kept the brand alive? Those are your ustads and mechanics who make your bikes, who build your bikes, who build your motorcycles. If there is a 1960 Bullet and you still have a mechanic who could fix that, those are the guys who get credit for kind of holding the brand alive for so long. Of course, the credit goes to Royal Enfield and Siddharth Lal and all of that. But yeah, again, so that was again one of the reasons why there's a tribute that has been paid to these people in the book, and there are many more.
So, I know this would be a difficult question, but do you have a favorite story among all of those that you interviewed? Something that you recall and you're like, oh, this is the best that I've come so
far. See, like Bobby Singh is a character.
Okay.
So I've said in the book also. I mean, he talks to his motorcycle like he there's a lot of respect. It's like your girlfriend, your wife, your mother, like that kind of a love. I mean, for me, I'm not a motorcyclist like the hardcore guy. I'm an observer of brand. But when you come across somebody like Bobby Singh and you see that he's speaking perhaps a different language that I'm not aware of. So intellectually that kind of hits you. And then I kind of, he was like, no, Baba, you do whatever you want to do, whether you ride, you don't ride, I don't care. And I said, if I write something, negative or critical about you, do you think you'll have issues with company? Baba, I don't care. I've been building bullets for the last 30 years. I have been doing it myself. So what I'm saying is they're all very carefree guys and kind of have managed to support the brand knowingly, unknowingly, and they're happy doing what they're doing. I mean, he has this workshop in Old Delhi, and then he spends some time between Old Delhi and Goa where he chills. He's married to I think a Bulgarian, if I'm not wrong. So he would ride to Bulgaria, will get on the way, stop and chat. He chats up with mechanics and would try and see if he could get some old Royal Enfield components of say 1950s and 60s, and he would collect them. So they're very quirky and very nerd kind of characters. Similarly, Paul Smith is like a typical hippie, right? I mean, imagine he's just left his home and has made Goa his home and is driven from UK to India. Not many people do that, and especially in those days. And all he does is basically collects old motorcycles, old Royal Enfields, and gives them a new look. You and I can't do that, right? I mean, not many people could do that. Or that guy Thanka Money, the Bullet Money guy that I'm talking about, he's fixed more than I think 700,000 motorcycles. And he's so particular about his skills that he's imparting that knowledge into his daughters. I typically see if a truck driver, if a guy is a truck driver, he doesn't want his kids to be a truck driver, right? I mean, that's looked down upon. He would always want his kids to go for higher education and get a good job. But here is a clan that wants its kids to serve Royal Enfield over the years. And there are several, like if you go to Old Delhi, there are like this is a Punjabi family that I spoke to. They have been serving the brand for 3 generations and they haven't done anything else. So that, yeah, I mean, several stories and these kind of things, just amazes you.
Okay, this sounds a lot more fascinating, coming from you directly, even more so when I read it in the book. And that begs for the question, right? Where you called out that there was a time when there was no one to look after the company.
Yeah.
And then again in the readout where you say, why was it a cult brand? Is it the sound, or is it the looks? Is it the masculinity that is associated with it? And again, I read the entire book looking for that answer as to what made it a cult brand. And both Souradip and I come from a B school. I did my marketing majors, so I put on my marketing hat on, right? And the question that I had in my mind, which I would want to pose to you is, uh, was Royal Enfield a cult brand 2000 onwards because of the management or despite of it? And why I ask that is because you see, it got so much negative publicity because of the, of the bike falling apart on many occasions. The wire would come out loose, pieces would break, the engine would go down. A lot of negative press, right? Himalayan became a huge disaster. Pegasus became a huge disaster. Yet the following grew. So, it begs for the question, was and is Royal Enfield a cult brand because of the management or despite of it?
Yeah, I think it has always been a cult. Okay. All due credit to Aisher and Sid for preserving that and nurturing the brand over the years, over the last 20, 25 years. But you have to kind of take a step back and think about this question. We had several such brands. You had Javas of the world, you had Yezdis of the world, you had Rajduts of the world. All of those brands are iconic. Yeah. The beauty of Royal Enfield is that while all the other brands kind of died on the way somewhere, it survived to tell its tale all the time, every time. I mean, there have been multiple opportunities, multiple instances in its history when you didn't know whether the brand would survive, even in the UK or in India. But I don't know what works. Something works, and every time it survives. I could kind of remember 4 or 5 instances when it was about to be shut down, like shuttered down. Royal Enfield is not going to be sold, and then something happens and it takes off. So yeah, I think with due credit to both Aisher and they brought in that thinking, and they understood the core DNA of the brand, that which is about exploring and leisure and all of that. But I do think Royal Enfield has always been a cult, like several other brands which we don't have today, which is an unfortunate part of our corporate history. I think those brands should have been preserved and revived. I believe Mahindra has been trying to resurrect a couple of them. We'll see how it goes.
And why do you think it has been a cult? Right? You called out many names, right?
Yeah.
Rajdut and others. What do you think makes these brands so iconic that they're just almost timeless for us?
Like first thing I said in the beginning, the stories, right? You have the stories associated with the brand. So even if you drive a commuter segment motorcycle, you have this thing in your head that one day you'll ride an Enfield and you'll go to Ladakh. But that's a more recent phenomena. That's a more 20-year phenomena which Royal Enfield has promoted. But before that, there's been a socio-economic connection to the brand, I would say. Like I talked to you about how it kind of held a connection with British regime and then the Indian army. And as India progressed as a democracy and as a society, at several instances, the kind of consumer or kind of customer that owned Royal Enfield changed. From Indian army, it moved to the socially powerful people, the zamindars and thekedars, yeah, or the rangdars. I don't know if any of you are from Bihar and UP. I mean, I am a Bihari, so I could associate with it. These rangdars and gundas used to have Enfields. That had been the story in the 80s and a larger part of 90s for Royal Enfield. I remember this. I was speaking to Badri Agarwal, who's quoted in the book as well, and he said when he was the MD of Royal Enfield, he got a call from somebody in Bihar and said that if the Royal Enfield doesn't get delivered, uske beti ki doli nahi uthegi. So and again, the current Aisher management had nothing to do with that kind of a phenomena. So yeah, like I said, the target audience for the brand has constantly changed, and it has touched almost each and every aspect of your growth of Indian economy's growth. From there, it moved to this young IT BPO crowd who suddenly kind of can graduate, can kind of swipe a credit card and buy an Enfield, 70,000 rupees Enfield, with IT boom happening in the late 90s and early 2000s, right? From there, then of course, Aisha putting in money and expanding the horizon of Enfield, all of that helped. What I'm trying to say is that it's there in your subconscious, whichever age group you are in, whichever part of the country you are in, whether you are from a metro or from a village. If you are from a village, you've seen the local cop coming on that bullet, or the dudwala coming on that bullet, or so yeah, that's been the single largest reason why it has kind of achieved that cult following and cult status in India.
But I'm also interested to know, what was the reaction of the company when you first approached them, and whom did you approach within the company as an active part of the company? And there's some sort of skepticism on their part, since every company has their own shares of in-house hustles and negativities as well that might come out to the public.
No, and in fact, sorry for interrupting, but just to add on, the people that you have talked about in the book, they are not from the past, right? They very well exist today. The company exists today. They're all there, and of course, not all of them are portrayed as heroes, as protagonists. Right? There is that element as well. So I mean, just to sort of enforce that question, right? What kind of experience was it to interview those people, and did you get any friction when you wanted to publish that book, when you want to ask those questions to the people?
See, one thing which I like about Royal Enfield a lot is that it doesn't want to control creativity around its brand. A lot of people, a lot of companies don't want people to run content or run threads or do videos without their permission and all of that. They want to control the brand narrative. From the marketing point of view, you would know what I'm trying to say. But the beauty of Royal Enfield is it has kind of always encouraged people to do things with the brand. Form clubs, do blogging, make videos, photography, which is, I think, the biggest kind of one of the biggest examples of how you could squeeze maximum ROI without spending anything, which I think the companies should learn. Okay. And that kind of helped me as well in my endeavor of writing the book. I had tracked the company for the longest time when I was a journalist, and I had been kind of meeting the management. I had met Siddharth a lot of times. Company was very supportive. I wouldn't say that they were reluctant, or there was friction, as you said. I don't think there was anything of that sort. They did arrange meetings with Siddharth and a couple of guys. But majority of the meetings and the people that you've seen in the book, or you've read about in the book, I kind of reached out to them independently, and I spoke to them, and they were very forthcoming and welcoming about all of that. Like I said, the only perhaps like I said, I had a fear in the mind that whether I'll be able to do justice to the brand. So that kind of got subsided with the kind of people that I was talking to and discussing the book with, and sharing the narrative that I was putting together in the book. So yeah, that was very helpful.
And now that you are into this is your career now, right? I'd say almost marketing. So putting on a marketing ads, and this is not a marketing ad, but yeah. Have there been any learnings from the brand that you today implement in your job?
Yeah, see, one learning for sure, which I'm kind of trying to see how I could execute in my current job, is that typically brands kind of go to target audiences, right? You go to the media, you go to the consumer. There are very few brands who manage to create this pull factor about themselves. I think Royal Enfield is one of them. The other brands that come to my mind are perhaps a Nike or an Apple. So how do you create this pull factor? The moment you create a pull factor, a lot of your marketing spends go down. You don't have to kind of worry about a lot of things, which I think Royal Enfield has done very beautifully over the years, which Apple has been doing very, very beautifully, and Nike has been doing. So that's something which I'm trying to kind of, I won't be able to say that how I'll be able to do, but I'm trying to kind of explore and see, even if I could do 10% of what a Royal Enfield has done in this space, a lot of work will be covered.
No, true that. And now stuff changing quick course here, right?
Yeah.
Rudratej Singh. He's a very different chapter in the entire story, right? Sort of changes the direction altogether. And you talk about a time in the company when it is soaring, right? The numbers are going through the sales, the valuation, the EBITDA has improved, the huge customer base. And then this guy comes and says that we are not doing things right. And he tries to bring in a different culture coming in from FMCG. Do you think there was a merit in what Rudy was trying to do there when the company was already successful? And how would you sort of assess his assessment of the brand itself, right? By the way, also to sort of to your point of how Royal Enfield has created a pull, Rudy makes the statement that Royal Enfield has taken its customer base for granted, right? They haven't really catered to them. They haven't leveraged them. So what is your take on that bit of Rudy's influence or his intervention in the company?
See, okay, let me just set some context, and if I deviate from the path, please bring me back. See, Rudy joined, I think, in 2014. Okay, on the back of this growth that nobody had anticipated Royal Enfield will achieve. I don't think Siddharth also, although he had said 300,000 units, but he never expected the company to kind of achieve that in such a short span of time. And which the company did, right? Despite all the product issues and all the production issues, capacity issues, and all of that. What perhaps Sid was expecting to happen in the next 10 to 15 years, perhaps happened in 7-8 years. And that did not allow the company to build the right kind of blocks in place for growth. Okay. It functioned like a startup. It's a very small company that was doing big things. A company where the CEO was fairly accessible. His office was like 10 steps away from the design lab. Anybody could walk into anybody's office, and so that was a very startup kind of a culture that they worked with. And then they suddenly realized that they have become too big. And if they don't really kind of manage the growth now, it could go either way. And that is when Siddharth also thought that was the right time for him to focus on things globally. So two challenges were in hand. One, how do you expand the brand overseas? And the other, how do you ensure that the growth that Royal Enfield is seeing sustains over a longer period of time? And clearly, from an organization perspective, the building blocks were very weak. So that is where I think Rudy and a set of other leaders were brought in. Like Rod Cobbs was brought in for North America. He was hired from Harley-Davidson. Then Sid hired a lot of people in the UK tech center from Triumph and Aston Martin and Ducati. I mean, he got the design head of Ducati. That was a steal. And that's how Rudy was also brought in. All these people were brought in to kind of take the organization to the next level in terms of how you operate, how you function, in terms of management. And I won't say that whatever Rudy was trying to do or whatever the practices that he was trying to adopt, he was wrong in any way. No, I think that's the natural progression that every company takes. You might become a $2 billion company, but you have to become a $10 billion company. Then you have to function in a certain way, right? Even Ubers of the world have changed. So that is where I think a lot of systems and processes were to be put in place, and that is what Rudy's job was. That's what he was told to do, and that is exactly what he was doing. I think whenever such kind of a transition or such kind of a transformation is effected, there are bound to be difference in opinions, and especially if you have people who've been there when Royal Enfield used to sell 2,000 units a month, right? So such people always think that they have done the right things and they have built the brand. And then here are a set of people who have come from outside who are going to now take you to another level. So to do that, you have to do different things which the people who existed from before didn't know or didn't have the expertise in. So I think this kind of a transformation and transition, any company of that scale would or of that nature would go through. Rudy had been very sharp. If you just look at the numbers during his time, it is, from 300,000 units to 800,000 units in a matter of 4 years is no joke for a brand like Royal Enfield. It's not a 40,000 rupees motorcycle he's selling. He's selling a 1.2 lakh rupees motorcycle.
No, so exactly, right. And to his credit, I mean, okay, would you mind if I read just another paragraph from your book?
Sure.
Yeah. And this is what I was looking up for, right? The moment you start saying to his credit. So what were his achievements at Royal Enfield? He took Royal Enfield to 65 countries from 3 countries in 4 years. That was crazy. I didn't even realize till it was called out. During his stint, the company's EBITDA went up from 18% to 32%. Sales of motorcycles increased from 500,000 a month to more than 800,000 a month. The company's market share went up to 7.4% from 3%. To which this man is saying, none of that is interesting. The average age of the customer came down from 40 to 28 in 4 years. That I do not think will happen again. It does not happen that fast.
Yeah.
And it just sort of comes towards that, to the end of that chapter when our man is resigning, right? And the entire context to that has been that he is trying to make that change happen and miserably failing at it, earning a really bad reputation in the organization for many reasons. So, but the curious thing is that you also have a follow-up chapter on how the success of a CEO isn't defined by his or her own period in the organization, right? If the CEO has successfully led the company, it is the success of her predecessor, and the success of the current CEO is defined by the performance of the successor, right? So if you put on that lens, do you think Rudy was successful?
Okay, so as a journalist, we were always told to give a contrast. The chapter which you are talking about, the art of motorcycle maintenance, is an attempt to bring that contrast and let readers like you to judge the role played by Rudy. In the previous chapter, you have the numbers that is actually backing his stint. And then the next chapter, you have examples of great CEOs and great companies, and how those companies perform after the great CEOs leave. So, see, it's a very difficult question to answer, right? I mean, it would be one's judgment. I mean, if you are reading both the chapters, you should be able to have your own judgment whether you are for Rudy or against Rudy. As a writer, I wanted to do justice to the readers, and that's why these two chapters were put together. I don't think I should be making a statement on this, because at the end of the day, the work that they do, the kind of companies that they run, and the kind of pressure that they face on a daily basis is unimaginable. So to cast a statement on who did well and who did not do well, I don't think as a writer was the right thing to do for me. So that was the reason I had like two very independent chapters of each, from each other, and with a very different narrative and perspective for readers to understand what they should understand.
No, that's great, and I did observe that you have very carefully stayed away from passing judgments, from making opinions, right? Where you are quoting people and quoting many interviewees in their assessment of the entire scenario, what they think, what was done right, what was done wrong, and I guess that brings quite a unique flavor to the entire reading experience. It is very unbiased and great. I mean, I enjoyed, I guess, that way of writing itself.
Thank you.
Right. And another interesting aspect of this book is I was actually going through the testimonials, and one particular testimonial struck me, which was of Sunil Kant Munjal's chairman, Hero Enterprise. So, a testimonial coming in from the Munjals on Royal Enfield, that's an observation, not a question, rather. It's something that struck me hard.
Can you call out that testimonial as well, Souradip, if you can just
Oh, yes, of course. No chapter on India's motorcycle and scooter industry would be complete without a meaningful documentation of the incredible Royal Enfield.
See, that's yeah, go ahead.
I guess that sort of, reflects the respect the competitors also have for Royal Enfield in a way.
Yeah, true. See, if you look at what has happened in the Indian two-wheeler industry in the last 2-3 years, everybody has tried to, build a product in that segment. Siddharth kind of took a punt and placed his bet on that segment. Whether he saw an opportunity or whether he didn't have a choice but to stick with that segment is a different debate altogether. But the fact of the matter is that segment is really the hot segment right now, where you get all your margins. You're not making margins on a 40,000 rupees motorcycle. You're making margins on 1.5 and above, like thick margins. Now, everybody, including Munjals and Bajaj and the Hondas of the world, they are trying to get into that segment, some way or the other. Bajaj is tied up with Triumph, or Hero is doing things on its own. Honda has launched this product called Highness last year, which competes with the Classic directly. So that's, in a way, is a recognition of the changes that Royal Enfield has kind of managed to bring into the Indian two-wheeler market, where the leaders, Honda is huge, right? I mean, Honda is the world's largest two-wheeler maker, and if that company is actually coming down and making a 350cc motorcycle, cruiser motorcycle, which is not in its portfolio or in its dictionary anywhere in the world, that says a lot about Royal Enfield, right? In fact, Harley Davidson 10 years ago built Street 500 and Street 750 looking at Royal Enfield. So clearly, I mean, what Mr. Munjal has said here is not an aberration. I think many of his colleagues and his peers would agree to what Royal Enfield has, the difference that Royal Enfield has created in this market.
Certainly, it has been a pioneer, right? It has been the poster boy of, I guess, very dull way to call it out, but the midweight two-wheeler segment, right?
Yeah.
But to that point, now that in the past couple of years there are so many players who are trying to do this, and this is entirely subjective, do you think that Royal Enfield will be able to maintain the cult status in India? Of course, they are working towards a global image, but how much do you think is at a risk that Royal Enfield will remain there? It will have still the same recall value that it has enjoyed for a decade, for a century, in fact.
See, it's a very important question that I'm sure folks at Royal Enfield would be asking themselves, right? The reason being that the story that they sold so far, or the things that worked for them so far, is not going to work for them anymore. precisely for the reason that I think that story has been outpaced by the growth that Royal Enfield has seen. I mean, every 10th, 15th guy today on the road is riding a Royal Enfield. So that aspiration value has taken a significant dip, right? So let's keep that aside for one moment. Now, what are the options? What are the roads that you could take? You know, that is something which, I mean, from whatever little they have done in the last 3 years, they are really trying to position themselves as a global motorcycling brand that wants to hobnob with the Triumphs and Harley Davidsons of the world. And I think that's where you need to be a bit careful. That's where you need to kind of preserve the core ethos of who you are and what you are and why you have reached so far. Again, like I said, I'm sure there are sharper minds at Enfield who would be looking at these things. So I think it's a great challenge that that the company has right now, and I believe they are far more equipped now to handle this kind of situation than they were 20 years ago. It's a happy situation to be in. The question is that you've become a mass brand, or you are becoming a mass brand. How do you ensure that your premiumness is intact? There are examples, like I said, Apple is a mass premium, or Nike is a mass premium, Uniqlo is a mass premium. If Royal Enfield can do this, I think another 20 years they'll have different stories, beautiful stories to tell.
Right, and we hope such beautiful stories could be, look forward to see such beautiful stories coming from you in future as well. And then that brings to our next question. What would be your next book, and when are we expecting it?
Yeah, I want to write. It's not that I don't want to write more books. I do want to write, but then you don't have topics like a Royal Enfield to write on. So you'll have to identify and kind of develop subject knowledge. And the biggest part is to give your commitment to it, which with a day job it kind of helps people.
No, but I know. See, I know it takes a lot of time, commitment, resources to write. But as a reader, at one, India is full of topics, right? And Souradip, I have thoroughly enjoyed your book, Amrit. So, just to sort of get that way of writing on other topics that we relate with is something that would be really great to have, right?
Sure, throw the ideas. I'll work on them.
No, sure. I'll definitely be sending you some. I'll definitely be sending you some. But on that note, congratulations and kudos to the achievement of calling out the story of Royal Enfield so well, right? Both from a very management back-end, cold, logical perspective, and then bringing in the emotional side of the story itself, right? I mean, great work there.
Thanks,
Humble opinion, right?
Certainly, I'm on the same page as Sahil is.
And
I'm glad you guys liked the book. Please
absolutely.
share the news that there's a book on Royal Enfield.
No, I already have done that. I have already done that with my brother. He is reading it now.
And please post a review on Amazon and LinkedIn. Bookstores are closed and books are not getting sold. The only way it's getting sold is through Amazon.
I'm surprised that you chose this time to launch the book. I mean,
I didn't have a choice, man.
Okay, no, but so we have
our viewers would find the description of the book, the Amazon link of the book in the description itself, in the description of the video, and certainly multiple posts are coming, is on the way, on our social media channels.
And we have come towards the fag end of the conversation, and every conversation ends with this one curious question: what the author reads. So, since you are a writer, what have been the books that you have enjoyed reading? That the top books that you would love to gift or recommend anyone, fiction, non-fiction, any genre. Top 1, 2, 3 books.
I have read biographies. I I think I loved Gold Steel. It's on ArcelorMittal. Then there's this book on Nike called Shoe Dog. That's also pretty cool. I am right now reading Ambani and Sons. I should have read it long ago. I haven't read that, but it's quite interesting. So yeah, I think these would be the top three. Steve Jobs, of course, is like a you know, the Bible for every business writer. So I think Steve Jobs' biography was fantastic. So yeah, those kind of stuff where you get to learn things and you get to know about people and writers. So that is what interests me.
No, sure. I guess it has been only after this whole experience of
I've
interviewing
I've
or
I've read. I recently another book that came out by again the former Mint. I saw you did a show with me. There are a couple of former Mint colleagues that they wrote a book on Azim Premji, Beyond the Billions. That was, I think, a fantastic book. I really love the flow and at the pace the book moves around. I think you guys should get in touch with them to do the show as well. That was
certainly.
very good. Yeah, that was very good.
Certainly. And actually talking about that experience of learning and knowing about the author, it is only now with the Banyan Tree that I have started reading the author's note, getting into the insight of what went into the book, right? And that is fun to know. I mean, I never really paid attention to the author's note up until I started doing this. So, quick tip to the readers or to the viewers as well: do sort of check it out. It's always very interesting to know what was the behind the scenes of the book.
And do keep, yeah.
So I was up every night till 2:33 in the morning, to a point when my wife said, "If you're coming to the bedroom, or should I just lock it forever?" So yeah, that's what I'm saying. Writing a book needs a lot of commitment.
It does.
Yeah. See, subject knowledge and access and all of that is one part, but when you sit down to write, it takes a toll on you.
No, that's definitely true.
Yeah.
And again, Amrit, thank you so much for coming on to the show. We hope that you enjoyed the interview come conversation, and looking forward to a lot more from you. Looking forward to stay in touch and just brainstorm ideas perhaps. But again, thank you so much for coming and joining us on the Banyan Tree.
Thanks,
No,
guys.
it really means a lot to us.
Absolutely pleasure. Loved the conversation. Looking forward to the show.